Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you're going to meet the great Josh Hickman. He is an author and artist. He's written 7 books, but the most recent book is very personal. It's about his mom and Alzheimer's, his incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
So I wrote one and only book in the year 2002, and I swore that I will never write another book again. It took me a year to write. It was a painful journey to write the book, and I was fortunate enough to sell 70,000 copies of Free Publicity. A TV reporter shares the secrets to getting covered on the news. So I admire prolific writers, and that describes my next guest perfectly. Josh Hickman is in the studio. He's an author and artist. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely. Okay, so you didn't even start writing until you were in your 40s?
Yeah, I had written for, I didn't start writing books. I had written for publications, newspapers, etc., guides. But I started writing books when I was in Hollywood, and in my 40s, I finally had the time. And I ended up writing 4 novels in 2 years. And then the next 2 in the next few years, and I loved it. I still love it.
All right, Josh, you've written 6 fiction books, and your 7th, which we'll talk about in a minute, is nonfiction and very personal. Let's go ahead and pull up your Amazon page, because if we had to create a genre for what you write about, it's humor based.
Yeah, they're comic novels, most of them, and short story collections. So. Not graphic novels, comic novels. So they're written just as seriously as a novel is written, but they're funny, So they're long, involved stories about life and troubles and pathos and absurdity and so forth, with colorful characters. Some of them are historic, so they take place in other time periods. Some are more contemporary, but yeah.
When you're writing fiction books, do the ideas just flow? I mean, what's the fastest you've ever written a book?
Yeah, the first one was certainly less than 6 months, and I had been collecting ideas for that book for 10 years before I wrote it. So I had been making notes, collecting jokes. It's a book about a comedy team, and I had always been interested in comedy and followed comedians and comedy history. And I had been just collecting anecdotes and so forth for years. And when I had the time, I finally thought, what am I going to do with all this? And so I came up with the idea of writing a fictional biography of a comedy team from their beginnings through their career to the end, to where they dissolve.
And you're not just a very talented writer, but you're also an artist. We've got some video from, I think, a gallery showing. Let's go ahead and put this on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
And where was this?
This was at Arts Mission Oak Cliff, which is in Oak Cliff in Dallas. And some of the pictures are from a show I did in Smithville, Texas, which is just outside of Austin. And I've been painting since I was a kid. I went to Booker T. Washington High School for Performing and Visual Arts here in Dallas, and continued with it in college, although I switched to film in college. And I painted on and off my whole life. About 2015, I kind of got back into it, reinvigorated. And I've done it pretty steadily since. And I paint portraits and landscapes and abstracts, kind of anything, bright colors.
What's it like to have a showing? Because I guess as the artist, I mean, you're there alone painting this. You hope this will be something that will be important. Is it weird to show it off?
Yeah, it's a very solitary thing. It's something you do by yourself, and then all of a sudden, and you have your own thoughts about the piece, and then all of a sudden there are all these people around looking at them, and it's gratifying. I mean, to hear people say that you do great work, or it's an amazing piece, or buy a piece, or whatever. It's nice, but it's weird because often their reactions are not at all what you think about the piece yourself. You have one idea, and they say, "Oh, is this a painting of so and so?" And no, not really, but if that's what you think it is, then that's great.
Well, it probably is gratifying to just hear other people's interpretation of your art.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and how their mind works and their eye works, and sometimes it's different than yours, or they can get it right on the money. You can do a painting of something. Oh, this is your experience with so and so. Yeah, that's exactly what I was shooting for. You got it.
Okay, so 6 fiction books, and then your mom, I guess, several years ago, started to have some cognitive issues.
Yeah. The new book is about my caregiving of my mother, who had dementia, most likely Alzheimer's, and how that situation came about, which was just very unexpected. I was not prepared, and the book is really for people who find themselves in that situation, and or might find themselves, or have lived through the situation. Being a solo caregiver for somebody in your family is difficult. It's never easy. It's often unexpected, and our relationship was difficult, and that's kind of the other difference about the book, is that we did not have a rosy relationship at all. And so I wanted a book for people like myself what do you do when you've had a bad relationship with your parent or whoever the relative is? For 40 years, you've had a bad relationship. How do you get through this process of caregiving for them? Because it's, in the beginning, you kind of don't want to do it. How can I possibly do this? And it's my story of finding my way through that.
I think it's probably your best work to date. I know it comes out in October. We're going to put the book cover up on the screen. It's called Forgetting, but give us the full title.
Forgetting: The Trials and Triumphs of Caregiving for a Difficult Parent with Dementia.
And I don't think I've seen anything like this. I mean, there's a lot of books on dementia and caregiving, but dealing with a difficult parent is unique. So tell us about some of the things people will learn when your book comes out.
Yeah, it's, like I say, for people who are going through this, and in my own story, as I said, it was unexpected, and how it started was just kind of a train wreck. It was, me personally, my life was going through a huge upheaval. My life was a mess. My mother's life was a mess. My father had passed away. She was living alone with basically no friends, no support system at all. And our two lives sort of came together in a weird way to get through this period. And which I did not, if you had told me this was going to happen a year previously, I would have said you were crazy, but life has a way of throwing you curveballs, and that's what happened to me and us. And so at one point, when things were really at their lowest, I thought, the only way we're going to get through this is together, probably, and I'm just going to have to figure out how to make that work, and we're just going to have to endure and reconcile with each other as best we can.
We're going to show some video from our library of people with Alzheimer's and dementia. But to your point, when you're dealing with a difficult parent and the relationship was already kind of challenging, what were some of the things that you faced that you hope people can, learn from your book?
Yeah, it's very difficult to kind of transcend that history and kind of forget your past and try to see the person, anew and their plight that they're in. And it's just, it takes a lot of will, some good advice, a lot of persistence. And like in my case, I think I finally found out that I was stronger than I thought I was. I thought there's no way this is going to work. And in the end, through a lot of suffering, but it did work. I could do it. I did make it through. and saw things to their conclusion. And so it's a tough road, but it's with some good observations and advice, hopefully everybody can make it through.
Sure, I know it's challenging, and this impacts millions and millions of Americans. Give us some advice on how you talk, the tone you use, so when your mom would ask you the same question 5 times in a row,
Yeah.
you can't say, "Mom, I just told you this."
Yeah, it's difficult. And as I said earlier, we thought she had a hearing problem, which she probably had a minor hearing problem, but it was more of a cognition problem when you have to repeat yourself over and over and over. And I noticed I had to do that more and more. My father, when he was still alive, had to do that more and more. She had probably had this condition for 5 or 6 years before anyone really was paying attention enough to notice. And I knew something was wrong. It took another 2 years for her to get diagnosed with dementia because she wouldn't go to doctors. She wouldn't take tests. Patience is, it definitely taught me about patience, tested my patience. I can be not the most patient guy, and if you ever needed a test, this was it. And there were times where you just have to take a break for 5 minutes and do deep breathing, because
Sure.
you're about to crack all the time, especially as time passes and the condition worsens. She can repeat things 50 times a day. She would wander around calling out for me because she couldn't find me in a condo,
Right.
and it gets old, and it was very tough. The repetition was something you just kind of never get used to, but you just have to let things go, just keep letting things go over and over and over again, and to get through it and without going crazy. So.
All right, so Josh, for other caregivers, and again, this describes millions and millions of Americans, the tone you use, if she asked you the same question 15 times in a row, you pretend like it was the first time she asked you the question?
Yeah. You just have to try to, not crack, and keep things as calm as you can, and know that this is not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. So you better come up with strategies for coping and getting through it. And it's difficult, but controlling your temper, controlling your emotions is definitely, one of the harder things to do in this situation. And it takes a lot of patience, and you have to learn new strategies to deal with it however you can.
And I have to imagine that even the tone that you use, because somebody who's going through this, they can pick up on cues like, my son is upset with me, but I don't understand why my son's upset with me.
Yeah. There was a problem that was eternal, was she couldn't hear, or so we thought. She couldn't understand the words. So I'd raise my voice like this, and every single time I did, she'd say, "Don't yell at me." And that happened like 5 times a day, every day. And so you just have to kind of trudge through it, and it's difficult. But yeah, you have to be careful with your tone and not get angry, and try to stay as calm and centered as you can. But inevitably, you kind of have little blow-ups here and there. There's no way to avoid it. But.
So I've dealt with other experts on Alzheimer's and dementia, and they say meet the person where they are. So
Yeah.
If your mom says, hey, we're going to Disneyland today, you say, Mom, probably not today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult because you keep slipping back into remembering how they were your whole life. So they'll say something and it'll immediately hit you that this is as if she said it 20 years ago, and you have to stop yourself and say, oh yeah, no, this is not really the same person. Her brain is operating differently now. And I have to, do I listen to that? Do I pay attention to that one? Do I ignore that one? If she wants to do this, are we actually going to do it? Or am I just going to ignore that because it doesn't make any sense? It's nonsense. And you have to start going through that process of weeding out, what makes sense, what's worth paying attention to, what's worth addressing, and what do you just have to ignore sometimes or lie about, say, we already did that, or, we're going there in 5 minutes, and things like that. And it's a learning process for sure.
And Josh, you lost your mom about a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
but you said towards the end she became a different mom.
Yeah, and that was really a big part of the story in the latter half of the book, is that she was a very difficult person, lots of, arguing, and I had put up with this my whole life, and she put up with me, and I put up with her. But near the end, thankfully, the way the dementia progressed was she actually became a nicer person. They usually say with dementia, people get nicer or meaner. And in her case, she was meaner in the beginning. She was just out of her mind. And then as it progressed, she became much, much nicer, totally different person than I've ever seen before. Not demanding, not arguing, no nothing. She just sat there and was this sweet little old lady. And it was a real revelation for me, because of course, I wish she had been that way all along, but that's not how it worked out. But I had two different views of her, is what I wound up with. There was the old mother and the new mother. And so now I had the ability to remember her as she was in the later stages. And that's much easier, because she was just a nicer person and more childlike. I really felt sorry for her. I really, felt pity for her. I was trying to protect her. And that was hard to do in the beginning, but at the end, that was not hard to do at all. And I'm thankful that I had that other view of her personality, because I'll always remember her differently now.
And Josh, you wrote 6 fiction books before writing this book.
Yeah.
Did you wrestle with this? Because this is about as personal as you can get.
Yeah, it's very personal. And I wrestled with it a little bit. As I said, along the journey, several of my friends would say, "Oh, you're going to write a book about this someday." And I thought, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. And after my mother passed away, I definitely thought about it, because I wanted to sort of get it all out. And but I waited, because I thought I was still too emotional, still too wrapped up in the story, still kind of angry, and so I waited about a year and until I had a bit of a different perspective on it. And then I thought, well, maybe now's the time. And so I started writing, and it all just sort of gush out. But yeah, I mean, I've gone back and forth sometimes, because I think, do I really want the entire world to know, the intimacies of my private life and my family relationships and so forth? Finally, I came to the conclusion that if it will help people, and if it will help for me to get it out, who are in this situation, then, it's worth it. I mean, what have I really got to lose? My mother has passed away. She's no longer here. And I think it's worth it. If it will help, then it's worth uncovering these little intimate moments.
Was it cathartic to put it down on paper?
Yeah, it was. It was helpful for me emotionally. I think I said to myself at the beginning that I should write it whether I publish it or not. I should probably write it. And I probably would have done that. And so I did. But then once it came out, I thought, I think maybe this is worth publishing, and it's the right length and so forth. But yeah, I certainly would have probably written it either way, just to get it out and down and on paper and out of my system. Yeah.
Josh, we got about a minute left, so talk to the viewer who's dealing with this, whether it's a difficult parent or not. What words of encouragement can you give them?
Yeah, it's it sounds cliched, but as they say, to know that you're not alone in your struggle in this process helps a lot. I went to a few caregiver support groups and stuff like that, and it does help. And I, being a totally solo caregiver, I was as alone as you can get. We had no caregiving, no nothing. It was me, and that was it. But to know that there are other people out there that are going through the same thing, that is just as difficult as you're going through, talk to them, share stories with other people, get advice, read books, do everything you can to help yourself. If you're not lucky enough to have other friends and family members who are, you have a huge family or something you can help out, that's great. But there are people like myself who that just isn't the case as much as you want it to be. And learn as much as you can, realize that things are going to change as you go along. And as I found with myself, sometimes you're stronger than you thought you were. I thought there was no way I would make it through this. And I kind of surprised myself. It's like, wow, this is the toughest thing I've ever done. And I made it through. There were many times I didn't think I was going to, but it's definitely possible, even if you're alone, you know.
Josh, thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with us. I know it's going to help countless people. His book comes out in October. We're going to put his LinkedIn page on the screen so you can get in touch with him, the great Josh Hickman. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.